Everything about Gen Con is designed to make you want to buy games. Right? From the hype lists coming out, the new releases that are only available there on the convention floor, the packed auditorium in the hallway that gets shoved up against the door, the time zone where they open, drop balloons, and everyone scatters rushing towards the booth they want to stand by, whether or not it's Lorcana cards, Kingdom Death miniatures, or pins. Listen, if you're sitting here watching this video, getting ready to rush towards your, most hyped game, let's bring that level down a little bit. I've got 10 games that have appeared on multiple reviewers, content creators, and just general media lists as the most hyped games of Gen Con 2024. Some of which are games that were on my list and that my wife and I would actually like to own, but I have a compelling reason for each one of them as to why you shouldn't purchase them at Gen Con, specifically. Whether it's the best price, you should know what you're getting into because it's probably just going to sit on your shelf, or the publisher really doesn't have a good track record of putting out reliable products. So the hype is where they make their money, and the window of time afterwards is, where everyone forgets about the game they published. Let's walk through this. Let's break down these 10 games quickly and fast, because I know everyone around you right now is screaming, buy, 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 run, 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 get in line, wait, and bring out your credit card. All right, the first one on my list that I do not think you should buy at Gen Con this year is the brand new, potentially hottest game of the year, Arcs by Leader Games. And before the BGG and Reddit community start leaving comments down below saying that I'm a clickbait, blackmailing, horrible husband and going to be a terrible father, I actually like Arcs quite a lot. It's a compelling, interesting game, and I'm nearing 10 gameplays of it now. I'd like to hit that 20, 30, possibly even 40 gameplays before doing a final official verdict, but I don't hate this game. I think it's really, really well designed. I think it's extremely compelling, and I think there's one core reason why you should not purchase it while you're on that convention floor. Arcs is such a strategic, nuanced, complicated game with arguably unfair rules for any players that have slightly more experience than the rest of the table, that if you purchase this, you need to be committing to getting 10 gameplays to your gaming table within a limited window of time, 3 to 6 months, with the same or close to the same core group of people. I never want to teach Arcs to another fresh table of gamers. I will if I have to, but this game requires multiple plays for you to even fully understand the nuanced micro rules, let alone the in-depth strategy and then all the weird mechanics it starts introducing as you move into the campaign and some level of asymmetry. It's a beautiful game, and I truly believe, shut up and sit down, when they say at 40 games and potentially even 20 games, they loved it. But that was 20 games or 40 games playing with experienced players, playing with people who knew and were willing to teach, learn, educate, and commit to repeat plays of this one title. I mean, it was on the cover of Tabletop Gaming. It's one of the best games of the year according to this content creator, this reviewer, and many, many others. And it might still hold a spot in the top 10 of the year for me. But that doesn't mean you need to get a copy of it now. They're reprinting it. It's going to come back into circulation. Play a friend's, demo the game, absolutely. But unless you can commit to at least a minimum of 10 gameplays in the next 3 to maybe 6 months, but really 3 months, this is just going to sit on your shelf. Because the first couple gameplays are educational and arguably disappointing, possibly potentially compelling. Then you get into a little bit more of the strategy, but you'll make mistakes that cause you to lose in dynamic, high-fashion ways. It's not until game 7, 8, 9, 10 that you really feel like you can sit down and be highly competitive. Now, it does play great at 2-player, so keep that in mind. 10 gameplays with one other person might not be too much of a commitment, but there's going to be a lot of people that buy Arcs like a lot of these other games on my list, and they'll play them once, maybe, but for the most part, they're just going to sit and crowd that wish list of games that I shouldn't have bought now because I can get them for a better deal later, and why not play a friend's because everyone's going to own this. The people that aren't watching this video are going to be running to pick this game up anyway. Moving on to game number 2, Rock Hard by Devere Games. This is like the top for everyone this year, and I understand why. Devere Games is an amazing publisher with really smart, intricate design, high levels of production quality, and usually very satisfying gameplay. However, I have 2 big arguments against picking up Rock Hard there on the convention floor. First off, there's not a single music-centered game, music-themed game that has broken the top 1,000. On tour, the Roll and Write would be the closest from my BGG research. I could be wrong about this, but this theme has historically not settled well in the realm of board gaming and the board gaming hobby. There's not enough people that have that crossover and relate to it. And I know some of you are saying you're very excited about it, but people have said that about other games that are music themed, Ragnarok Stars and Vinyl, games that I think were a lot of fun. I think this is going to fall off quickly. And I'm concerned about that because many people are going to spend that $50, $60 picking it up there on the convention floor because they're excited and because they're hyped. I mean, this was on my wife's list. She certainly would have picked up a copy. But I think it's going to be on sale within a couple months, not from the publisher, but specifically from people like sellers on BGG. We bought the Three Ring Circus last year there on the convention floor, and within 2 months, we could have bought it at half price like new. So if you're excited about this and you want to get a copy, this isn't going to be the best deal. The theme is not going to settle well. And on top of that, based on some of the other games that Devere has just recently released, a game called Sand specifically, they've struggled a bit in translating and bringing over rulebooks for mid to high level complexity games. And I know this isn't supposed to be so heavy, but I would wait to see what the general consensus is, not only about the quality of gameplay, but also about the teach. If you purchase this on the convention floor, you're probably going to try to get it opened and played. And I heard reviewers on BGG talking about spending 30 minutes, 60 minutes, just trying to teach some of the other Devere games that have come out because the rulebook was so rough. So keep that in mind. I just don't think this is a good spend there on this day. Maybe in the future. And I certainly hope to play it as well. We stood in line last year all night for Lorcana. We had a great time. We hung out with the crowd. We rushed in. We bought everything they had available, from playmats to card sleeves to terrible binders that we ended up replacing because they were made out of the cheapest Chinese quality stuff possible. And then we played. We played a lot. We opened our packs. We did a series of videos here on the channel. And by the end of that series, we thought 2 things. One, we had a really good time as a newly married couple exploring a brand new card game that had just launched with themes and artwork and story that attached to us because we grew up as Disney kids. And Lorcana, at that point, wasn't a very good game. It felt unbalanced and swingy. It felt wildly irresponsible with some of its decisions around how you get cards back into your deck, and colors, or the way that you combined colors, was extremely unfair. I know it's been balanced a little bit more, and this expansion is going to be introducing a new wave of mechanic systems and characters that you love, but don't buy the hype yet. Don't spend money there on the convention floor unless you're looking to resell immediately, so then you can make a profit. But Lorcana right now is just not the investment you think it is from a gaming standpoint. If you're a Disney fan or a collector, I understand you're going to be standing in line, but we stood there as gamers. We opened, unboxed, punched, packed, and tried to play everything that we purchased. And we should have honestly just stuck it up on eBay and made a couple $100s off our sale. So as an investment or a collection, yeah, sure. If you're bought into Lorcana, stand in line. But if you're just interested in playing it and starting to explore that mechanic system, it's not a very good game yet. It needs time to age, grow, and develop a little bit of maturity. And other living card games have that same element. Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh! All of those took a few generations and seasons to lift up to the status that they hold now. I think Lorcana will get there, but it's not the time to invest. Moving on down, Kingdom Death Monster. I know, my favorite game of all time, but hear me out on this. You shouldn't stand in line. You shouldn't rush to the front. You shouldn't go through the Kingdom Death line until at least a day or 2 has passed by. You might miss out on a few limited run models. There's some collector things like resin busts and stuff they release, but here's the problem with the Kingdom Death booth. It is beautiful. It is an art display. It is full of all of these things that you just want to put your face into. Well, maybe not the goblin. But the problem is that Kingdom Death Monster, 1, is giant and unwieldy, and 2, is one of the most effective games at selling you more stuff than you need. If you go in with a $100 budget and you walk through the Kingdom Death Monster line and you're a fan and going to purchase anything, you'll spend more than your budget. If you walk in with a $1,000 budget for the convention floor, you might blow it all in a single line standing scenario at Kingdom Death. I mean, last year we did not have the money to spend at Kingdom Death, and we walked through, and between my wife and I, went from we're only going to buy gameplay related stuff to we've just purchased something like $1,200 worth of product and we're still shopping on the convention floor. It's not a responsible booth to go through unless you just have the money to throw around. You should go there. You should look at it. It's beautiful. The models are gorgeous, but do it after the rush. Do it after the hype. Don't get caught up in the wave of everyone grabbing everything, everyone spending everything. It's going to destroy your budget or put you in debt. I mean, we've probably paid, credit card levels of interest for an entire year on those purchases. That wasn't worth it. That removes any incentive from buying it in the first place. Moving on down, Foundations Metropolis. Now, Foundations is a great game. In fact, we just had a game night this week playing Foundations of Rome. This is our board. This is the beautiful miniatures that built out. I lost horrifically, but we love this game, and I understand the argument. It is unwieldingly expensive, kind of hard to get to the table. It doesn't travel around very nicely, so there's an argument on behalf of buying Foundations Metropolis. But if you already own Foundations of Rome, Arcane Wonders has a really good way of reselling you things that you've already played, and my biggest argument about buying Foundations Metropolis right now, if you're already an owner of Foundations of Rome, is that you're not going to get one or the other to the table that much more often, and Foundations Metropolis is missing some of the more advanced strategical elements that Foundations of Rome included in the box. The little miniature expansions, things like monuments, for instance, a system that I play with every time because 1, it makes your board beautiful, and 2, it gives you more asymmetry for how you're scoring and how you're moving through the game. I think many people are going to buy Foundations Metropolis as the affordable, accessible, easy way to get into the Foundations game and system, and I think that's actually reasonable, responsible, and totally justified. I also think Arcane Wonders is smart for reprinting and rebranding in a more accessible fashion. But if you already own the big box or you want the big box with miniatures, don't seek out Metropolis. It's just not there yet. I think what we're going to see happen is those expansions that everyone loved in that original big box game will be released down the road as little mini expansions that'll have another resell to everyone. So that price point will creep a little bit closer to, well, not the $300 mark, but maybe the $100, $120 range when it's all said and done. So hold on, be calm. They're going to keep printing it. They don't have things that really go out of print as a publisher. It's going to be available everywhere, and wait for the demand to skyrocket for some of those better, more advanced mechanics to show up. My next one, Star Wars The Mandalorian Adventures. A lot of buzz around this, a lot of hype around this, which is kind of confusing to me because I don't often see IP games coming into the board game marketplace and capturing everyone's attention. I mean, this is a little storybook game, card driven. You can play it solo, you can play it cooperatively, and I've heard good things. I mean, Dice Tower gave this, I think, like a high 7, mid 8 final score, and I'm compelled. I like the show. I like the Star Wars universe. Shira and I are currently watching through all of the movies as we await the little baby, and I also don't think you should purchase this on the convention floor. It's just not gonna be fancy, limited, or rare enough. They're not saying right now that they're gonna be putting it in a big box store, but let's be honest. This is going to be a successful game, a hyped game. It is clearly produced. I mean, you can just tell by the way that they have, made the cardboard standees and printed everything in a spiral ring binder to keep the box size like exactly where it needs to be to go on retail shelves. This is gonna be available. This is gonna be printed in mass. Many people are gonna have access to this game, and I think very quickly after people have started purchasing and playing through the entire campaign, because it is a campaign game, you're going to see them popping up for sale really soon post-convention, maybe a month, maybe a little bit longer. So you'll be able to pick it up at, a severely discounted price quickly. And then on top of that, just not even the resale market, this is going to end up being printed and distributed in a lot of big box stores. Or if not your Targets and your Walmarts, at least across mom and pop stores all around the country and online retailers to boot. And there's going to be steep discounts there as well. I have no expectation of this becoming rare or limited, which means you don't need to rush to the front of the line to get your hands on it now. Because playing it now versus playing it, I don't know, a month from now, really isn't that big of a difference. Moving on next, we have Undergrove, another game designed by Elizabeth Hargrave. And I have to be honest, I'm a fan of Elizabeth Hargrave. I like many of her designs, and I'm always interested in what she's putting out next, but the hit that Wingspan was has really been hard to compete with ever since it came out. This has been a game that Elizabeth has been dreaming of designing for a long time, but right now the reviews that are coming in are saying that it misses some of those elements that you'd want when you're exploring this beautiful, rich, mitochondrial, I don't know what the actual official term is, but you're exploring the world of mushrooms. It seems lovely, it seems compelling, but here's the problem. This is the second game, I believe, that's been published by AEG with Elizabeth Hargrave's name attached to it. Mariposas, the flight of the butterflies, was the first, I think, and it's standing at like a 6.2 or so over on BGG. This is already standing. I actually have it written down right here. Mariposas is standing at a 6.8. Undergrove is standing at a 6.2. Mariposas has 5K reviews with a lot of hype since it was, I think, the second game, the game that had immediately released after Wingspan. And then Undergrove is already scoring lower than that, with probably the most dedicated, invested people getting it to the table initially. I don't think this one is going to hit it out of the park. I don't see that score ticking upwards as it starts to arrive into more and more backers' hands and people purchase it in more and more retail locations. And based on what they did with Mariposas, I just don't trust that there's going to be good quality production and a final compelling game. If you really like the mushroom stuff, there's also Mycelia. This has been the year of mushrooms. Mycelia is standing at a 7, like a high 7 over on BGG. I think it's like a 7.4 or 7.3. And it's got your beautiful mushroom landscape and architecture and nice little high quality wooden pieces that spread across the table. So if you want the theme, you don't have to go with the new one by Elizabeth. And if you do want the new one by Elizabeth Hargrave, it's probably worth waiting to see where it pans out, or trying to just play it and demo it from someone there on the convention floor. You might love it. It's very true. But I'm not sure, and evidence is seeming to indicate that about half of you won't. So keep that in mind. Moving on down. The search for UAPS, unidentified, anomalous phenomena. There is something out there. Man, I hate that name. Why not like the search for UFOs or something like that? Something that I can remember and say again. UAPs is not a phrase that I think I've ever heard. It's certainly not a normal, parlance, normal point of conversation. And so this game is going to be hard for me to remember. I'm already turned off because I don't like the name. And it's just a rehash or a reprint of 2 other games, The Search for Planet X and The Search for Lost Species. Now, there are differences between all of them, and thematically they do shift and change, but basically the Dice Tower review for The Search for Lost Species was The Search for Planet X with a worse theme and slightly better mechanics, and it played better at 2-player than The Search for Planet X did. These are great games. I want to play all of them. I want to explore all of them. But if you're hyped up for The Search for UAPs and you haven't played either one or at least one of the other 2, go buy them. It's going to be the same brand new experience for you. Let people get the hype out of the way for UAPs. I can't even remember it sitting here in front of a game board box. I think it's a terrible name. And then pick this up because it's going to be available down the road. Again, it's just one of those things where unless you are a big fan of the original 2 and you need something new, the game's already been done twice and arguably already been done better. I mean, they stand at like an 7.9 and an 8.0 on BGG with thousands of ratings. So this is going to have to do really well, like exceedingly well, and do something completely different and unique to beat that score. I just don't think it's going to be there. All right, moving on down. Search for Planet X, Search for Lost Species, Rolling Realms Redux, brand new Rolling Realms box from Stonemaier Games. I really want this. I will end up owning this, but here's the problem with Rolling Realms. If you're a fanboy like me, great. You already know you're going to get this. You don't need to be watching this video. You've tuned out. You're like looking down the aisle for what you're going to, how you're going to run to the Stonemaier's booth. For all of you that are thinking about getting this because you've seen people continually talk about it, here's the biggest problem with Rolling Realms. It's really, really niche. It's a brilliant roll and write game. And if you know a lot of board games, you're a board game hobbyist, enthusiast, collector, I think it does a really interesting system of mixing, matching, and giving you a flavor of all of these various different types of games. But this one's getting way more nuanced than the original. And so like half of these games in this board, I've never even played. So yeah, maybe it'll pique my interest, but I really just want to play in systems that I'm slightly familiar with. And so this is getting steps away more and more into the hobbyist-centric side of Rolling Realms. It's like a little board game shelf of roll and write card game puzzles. And that's beautiful and that's amazing, but I can't really get Rolling Realms to the table with anyone but me and other gamers who are as enthusiastic as me. And so I don't find that it gets off the shelf often because many people just don't know the game, so they can't appreciate how unique the design is. And so if they can't appreciate how unique the design is, you don't want to sit there and have to explain it to them. I just think it's too closed of a system. An amazing game, a beautiful system, but I don't think you need to run out and grab it now. It's Stonemaier. It's going to be available. It's going to be in print. And yeah, I mean, how often are you actually going to get it down to the table? Moving on, Aquatica Coral Reefs. And this might be the last one on my list. I wasn't counting as I was doing this. There are 10. I know that for a fact. Well, I shouldn't say confident things like that. But we historically have been very big fans of Aquatica as a game. However, this is on our list because we just recently got Aquatica back to the table 2 times. We played 2 sessions of it with a friend who was being introduced to it. And both Shira and I have really cooled on Aquatica. It was compelling and interesting when it was one of those early games that we were exploring 3 or 4 years ago. One of the first games Shira came across that was not only bright blue, but also mechanically deep in a way that she found very satisfying. But nowadays, because we've played and deepened our love of games that have any type of hand management or tableau building or drafting, Aquatica really sits on a very thin line. And so if you know that you already love Aquatica, I could see an argument on behalf of picking up Coral Reefs. I probably would as well. I'm interested to see what they continue doing with the system, and it's a game that I have loved, but I've cooled on. It went from like a 7.5 to probably a 5.5 in my book, which is a pretty steep drop over the course of the past few years, but I'm not convinced Coral Reefs is really going to do anything that causes me to consider the game saved. It might raise it just a little bit back up to like a 6 or a 6.5, but it's still down from where it used to be for me when I first discovered it. But my big warning to all you people who are seeing people talk about Aquatica, seeing people talk about the brand new expansion, seeing how beautiful the artwork in the box is, our instinct would be to buy base game expansion, everything right away. And I don't think that's the right approach here. I think if you're going to get into Aquatica, get that base game to the table first. See if you enjoy it. See if you like it. See if the depth and the strategy is where you are in your gaming experience. But if you're considering any of these other games that were on the list, Aquatica might just not be right for you anymore. If you loved Aquatica back 2 or 3 years ago, get it to the table again before buying the expansion that's coming out. It's been a long time since new stuff has come out for Aquatica, and I don't know. It just hasn't held up in the realm of other games arriving. So, there you have it. There's the 10 games that I really don't think are worth buying at GenCon. There's a lot of games that'll be better deals. You really have to overcommit to, like Kingdom Death or Arcs, if you want to pick them up. And on top of that, there's just a lot of stuff that sells primarily during this season of hype. They hold it, they bring limited quantities, they artificially inflate how big their lines are and how much demand there needs to be. and then a month or two later it's still in shrink on your shelf, or potentially punched and sleeved but never played, sitting on your shelf, and everyone stopped talking about it. If you want to see the games that I think people will hopefully still be talking about, we did do a top 10 games that we would absolutely be standing in line and running for if we were there at the convention today. But not these. Well, still probably some of these. What can I say? I'm a duck. I have better advice than I follow. And that's a good thing. You should always have something above your current standard that you're aiming at. So, I'd probably still be in line for at least 2 of the games on my list here, but not all 10. At least I can say that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Have an amazing time at GenCon, and let me know which games you're absolutely still going to be purchasing despite my well-wizened advice. We'll see you later. Bye.